And I tell everyone that's dealing with, direct customer service, you should only have tasks that fill up about 4 to 5 hours of your day. You should have 3 or 4 hours of your day work time that's open to handle what comes in. Because there's a lot of things that are not predictable. You don't know, you cannot predict a pipe busting and having to immediately take action, immediately call the owner, you can't do that and then get an 8-hour workload.
Hello, professional property managers. Andrew Smallwood here with Second Nature, your host of the Triple Win podcast, and I'm joined by my good friend, an industry professional, Maranda Hunnicutt. We're recording this live at Broker Owner. Maranda, always a pleasure to talk with you, work with you. Appreciate you spending some time with us today.
Thank you. Same to you.
Yeah. And for those who haven't met you or haven't had a chance to catch one of your sessions, right? You're frequently tapped by NARPM as an educator. What should people know about you, Foothills, the company? Give a little bit of your backstory.
Started the business in 2010, and I was a 27-year-old single mother that had been working in real estate, and this was the only plan. This was not plan A, this was it, and I was going to do it, and I was going to make it work. And 14 years later, we're at 700 units with 14 employees and rocking and rolling, and my daughter's going to be in her senior year of high school, and she was 3 at the time, and it's crazy, but it's been a fun ride so far.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like there's a kind of a story of determination and persistence there.
Yeah.
I'm reading into that. But
absolutely.
15 years and there's been exciting growth. Something we'd love to talk about today is, property managers may be at different stages of their journey, but thinking about how do I build a different business that stands out, stands alone to some degree, that's successful, but I'm growing in a way that's sustainable, growing in a way that's durable, built for decades plus, type of impact and increasing the impact of the business. What are some high level thoughts you think about if somebody is saying that's my goal? What advice might you give them?
The first thing I would say is slow and steady wins the race. So, take it all the way back to, a good old fable. The hare wins in the end. Not the hare, the tortoise wins in the end, right? So when you're building something to last, you need to make sure that you're laying your bricks very carefully and you're not just piling up a bunch of sticks, right, to stand the test of time. So as you grow, you need to make sure you're being mindful of that and that you can take on that growth and you can service those clients, because someone, you do certain things to get a client, but then you have to keep them. So if you're, losing 20-30% a year, you have to grow 30 or 40% a year. You're going out of business. So, but if you can have a 5% loss because sales market or whatever, and you're growing at 12%, which is pretty much what we've done. We've had some higher growth years and things like that, but we've done double digits pretty much very steadily, but never super crazy high, because I know we can't service it. So, and there are times that you have people that really want to come on and you really, really, really want to take that business, but you can't. And sometimes you have to say, hey, I want your business. Right now is not great. We're onboarding, and I want to make sure that your experience is good and that we can build a sustainable relationship. What do you think about 6 months from now or 3 months from now or whatever? And I think when you reply to someone at that level, they're like, okay, she's put in thought into this. She cares. She wants this to really work out. And it's honesty from day one and being fully transparent. So for me, I think to have something that lasts, you need to be very strategic in how you build it.
Yeah, you just imagine, I've heard this a couple times now, just the response you would expect from somebody as a buyer, right, is, oh yeah, whatever I can do to earn your business and earn your business right away. It's got to be almost like oh wow, I wasn't expecting them to say, hey, I'd love to find a way to work with you, but that may not actually be next Tuesday. And here's why, and here's the experience we want you to have with us so that you're with us for a long time. And this is a successful relationship. I'm curious, are there moments or stories or examples you could share of, like, as opposed to the tortoise moment, it was the hare moment, and lessons learned of, like, man, here's an example of something we thought was the right decision at the time, but then here was the challenge that we faced and what we learned from that?
Yes. So when we were at probably 380 units or so. And I had this client that, well, he wasn't a client then, but I had been talking to him for like, I don't know, maybe 2 years. He would call, ask questions, just have conversations and whatever. And I really wanted this business. I really liked the guy. And it was like 70 units. So that's great, right? I'm at 380. This is huge. At the same time, I'm also talking to someone else who's got a like 30 unit townhouse community. And honestly, I didn't think for sure I was really going to get either one of them. And they both wanted to sign up, and they both wanted a February 1 start date. So the team and I are managing 380 units, and we have a 100 unit on board. And when I tell you, I think I slept like, I don't know, 10 hours that whole month. And I was like, are my people going to quit?
Right.
This is insanity. And it was a little bumpy, to say the least. We got it done. We kept the client that has 70. The other client we kept for like 5 or 6 years, and then they sold, which was their plan all along. But wow, there were some lessons learned. A lot of lessons learned with that. So
if you could rewind and go back to that moment, how might, if somebody was presented with that kind of opportunity now, how would you think through that and work through that, knowing what you know today?
I would have said to the 70 unit client, because they were single family, I would say, okay, let's get a plan to take 10 units a month and focus on those. And it's going to be a 7-month takeover. And, or at the same time said to the 30 unit guy, hey, I really want to work with you, but February 1's not a great day for me. How about September? Does that work? And let me get my feet wet. But it was insanity. But the lessons that came from that mistake were invaluable. So, I did learn something in the crazy, which was nice.
Yeah. And, another question, like a moment ago, you were talking about churn and how if 20%, 30%, right, is falling out of the bottom on an annual basis, you got to sell 20, 30% just to get back to even and all that work to do that. 40% plus is a lot of growth to see just a little growth. So like the impact of churn on the overall impact, I'm curious your perspective on when you think about churn, how do you guys kind of assess, here's what we think is good, in our context and what we're doing there. What are kind of the sources of churn, where you see that kind of coming from and how you guys have approached that?
For us, all of our churn comes from two things: a sale or us terminating. Very, very rarely does an owner terminate us because they are unhappy with our service. And to me, that's like, if that happens, we are doing a total debrief. We are doing a deep dive. We are getting into it. Like, everybody's all hands on deck meeting. What happened? I need to know. Sales is, you're going to have a normal, natural, we've been in a very hot sales market, and that's going to come. It's going to happen. And then I still do our BDM stuff because I really like it. And sometimes I take clients that aren't a great fit because I just really want them to be. And I like them. But I don't like their property, and it's not what we're used to dealing with. And, it's not a good fit. And so I had to terminate a client that had like 60 units last year.
Wow.
And so we had 20% churn last year, first year ever. Our highest prior to that was like 6%.
Wow.
I track that kind of manically, but they just weren't a good fit. They were not the properties 20 of the properties weren't in our normal service area. The court system was different. Filing the evictions were different. Trying to get my vendors out there wasn't ideal. I was having to really push them to go. And then the larger apartment, the clientele was not what we're used to dealing with. And so, getting better about being very clear on who you want to do business with and not taking people that aren't right for you. Lessons repeat themselves until you learn them. Mm-hmm. And that is one that has repeated itself for me. And I think I'm getting there on learning it. I'm getting better at it, at least. I'm learning tidbits. I'm picking up some knowledge on it. But that's where most of our churn comes from. And it's good churn to me is a sale, right? They were happy. There was not anything we could have done. We didn't do anything wrong. I didn't pick the wrong person. That's good churn. You got what you wanted. The property has served its purpose. You're cashing out, moving on. Great. And then obviously bad churn is when they say you messed up and I'm firing you, which is a huge deal. And then neutral churn to me is kind of like, Maranda, come on now. You know better.
Yeah, I like how you're categorizing the churn to say it's not all viewed the same, like good churn versus bad churn. Some of this is market driven. Some of this is, hey, things that are more directly in our control or within our influence. And one thing that you said early on that struck me was like, and if bad churn is happening, something within our control, how seriously you take that. Mm-hmm. It sounds like the culture is, that's not just accepted or tolerated or like, yep, that's just what happens. This is that. It's serious. It reminds me of a company that I heard of that was really known for like amazing customer service and retention. And they talked about how, I think it was Andy Props who told me the story of, there was a client that was saying they were going to churn and like the CEO like flew to their house, right? To meet with them and it's like, oh my gosh, like what can we, and just that attitude and that culture permeating the organization, it seems like a key to success. 6% churn, it seems like great, performance-wise, if you look at benchmarks at the industry. And something else that you were saying there that got my attention was you were talking about, okay, there's a sale, these right fit clients, being clear about who you're for, and not just a right fit client, but the right fit property. In addition to that, I'm wondering if you can share, like, as an example for people, even if it's not exhaustive of all the things, but here are some of the things where you found, like, here's how we have defined who our right fit client is or right fit property is versus wrong fit. Just what you guys have found works for you, what you focus on.
Really, it's figuring out if their values align with our values. Because service is huge to me. I mean, my business reputation is everything. Because that's something that you can lose so quickly and not get back. And you get business, you grow. I've never spent money marketing. I mean, I classify it as marketing, but I give it to charity, do like events and stuff. But I don't do mailers. I don't cold call people. I don't have, cold leads coming in or anything like that. All of our growth has been organic. And that's because I am crazy about our reputation and how our clients feel about us. But some of the ways, just in talking to someone and throwing out different scenarios, seeing how they're coming to us, what problems are they looking to solve? If I'm on a call with someone and they're immediately talking about their old property, I'm with this property management company and they're doing this, this, and this. And I'm like, well, and I'm very blunt, I'm very blunt and honest, and I just, sometimes filter's not there. And I'm like, well, we do that too. And this is why we do that. And if you're looking for a company that's not going to do that, we're not the right fit for you. And then what's their approach to repairs and how do they speak about their residents? What's their kind of vibe on that? And then I ask them what their plans are. Why are you buying this property? Is this your grandmother's house that you ate Sunday dinner at every Sunday for your entire childhood and you've inherited it and like you're going to cry if somebody takes down the rose bush? We're probably not a good fit for you. If you're buying it because, your parents are getting older, your spouse is getting older, whatever, and you want to fund their long-term care, like nursing home care, because we have several clients that do that, I'm a wonderful fit for you because I'm gonna manage, how you want and to be able to achieve your goal. So if what you want to get out of it matches what I know I can do, then we're a good fit. If what you want to get out of it, I can't guarantee you that a resident is not going to chop down your grandmother's rose bush. I can't do it. So we're not a good fit.
I love just like painting color with the specific examples there on how here's a client with a goal that we can work on together and their requirements match our competencies versus here's somebody with a goal that we don't have as much experience with or we have experience with and it's harder for us to work successfully on together and the requirements aren't a match for what we really focus on being good at. So appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, Maranda, I'd love to ask this question that feels like a persistent challenge in the industry of, I don't know if it's spinning plates or what the best analogy is, but this idea of like, every time I'm growing, I'm adding more work. And in fact, as I'm doing that, and I get to a certain point, usually it's at 300, 400 unit point where you start to have to add more people, get more specialized. Eventually, as you go from there, there's like a management layer that starts to come in. And it's challenging. Like I hear a lot of people say, like, you want to try to push through that as quick as you can. But I also hear, like, you want to do that thoughtfully, right? Because otherwise you're causing other troubles. And so how have you thought about kind of the balance of growth and operations working together to fuel the business and support and resource the business, but again, not get too far ahead of your skis where it's affecting your reputation? How have you guys managed that?
That is walking a high wire.
Yeah.
I mean, that is really like, don't look down because it's scary. That's a good question. So for me, we kind of look at who does what, and then what's that volume as we grow. So first because we've kind of been down this road. So at first we were just, 4 or 5 of us together. We just kind of handled whatever. This person kind of was in charge of this, but we were all in a very small office. I miss it sometimes. And everybody heard everybody else's conversation. We didn't really have to communicate because I just heard what you said to that owner and, I knew who you said their name or whatever. And then as we moved, we're in a bigger office. You have different team members and all of this stuff. And it's like, okay, what are you doing? What is your role? And then how much of that can you handle? Where are you at capacity? And I tell everyone that's dealing with, direct customer service, you should only have tasks that fill up about 4 to 5 hours of your day. You should have 3 or 4 hours of your day work time that's open to handle what comes in. Because there's a lot of things that are not predictable. You don't know, you cannot predict a pipe busting and having to immediately take action, immediately call the owner, like you can't do that and then get an 8-hour workload done. So when their capacity is getting closer to, it takes me 6 hours. Okay. And then we look at that and say, what are you doing that maybe needs to be automated? Or pieces of it be automated, or maybe some of it goes to an RTM, or maybe we hire, a third party to reconcile our books for us. So you're not doing that anymore, or whatever, and manage the load that way. But then always just kind of taking a pulse. I think that's having a consistent pulse on who's doing what, how much time it's taking. What's your capacity? I ask that all the time. What's your capacity? Are you full? You open? You got some time? You don't? And they never know why I'm asking. So they're like, they're real honest because I catch them off because they don't know. I might ask them to work on a special project with me. That would be super fun. Or who knows what it's going to be, send them on some random wild goose chase. That's, a lot of fun. But I think keeping a pulse on the capacity and knowing where you're at, because service, you can't be at 100%. You can't and do service. You have to have some open time.
So a question on that, just what's worked for you, because I've seen people kind of go about this in different ways. I remember talking to a VP of sales who was talking about capacity and like, when do we know we need to hire another salesperson, right? And add somebody on. And he talked about, okay, here's this like sophisticated, 8-step dynamic kind of view to it. He's like, or I can just like pull up their calendar and see. He's like, I've got a simple way and I've got a like complex way.
Right.
Like, I imagine you could go about that different ways. Like some of it could be like scorecard management, right? And you're tracking, here's the number of tickets coming through and what you're seeing there. Some of it's just conversational and talking to them. What's worked for you to get like a clear, good sense of ground truth for that and see how it's changing?
Lead Simple has been very helpful with that, which is one of the reasons we switched to them a couple of years ago. I can pull up at any time and see everyone's task because there's cycles, right, in the month. So the first 2 weeks of the month, you're going to be a lot busier than you are the third and the fourth week of the month, right? So, and then we build them out calendars for them, like especially when we're onboarding a new employee, we're like, this is kind of how your work's going to flow because we know that you're going to have some downtime. So that's when you work on your renewals. That's when you send out, the stuff that's time sensitive and needs to get done, but it's not like as time sensitive as a delinquency process. But Lead Simple helps with that. And then checking calendars, look and see, how many calls were you on today? We use Time Doctor, which is great. But I would say the number one.
Just in case someone's not familiar with that, that's like a time tracking tool. Is that right?
It is. Yeah. So it does screenshots and it tells you like, I can look and see that our leasing coordinator spent 2 hours in our background check software and 3 hours inside of AppFolio. And then, then he was on the phone for the other time, calling people, returning calls, whatever, getting stuff done.
Yeah. And either that looks right or, hey, this seems like a lot of time in the screening piece. So let's dig into that and understand, is there something slowing them down and addressing that? And it sounds like, hey, when you notice somebody might be orange lining or red lining, that's when the group kind of comes together to say, how do we identified a capacity issue or a constraint here. Do we solve this with third party? Do we solve this with automation? Do we solve training? And that's kind of how you're working through that on an ongoing basis. Is that right?
Yeah, because we might not, the answer might not be, we might not need another staff member. We might need to just set up some automations, or maybe we just need to improve the process, or maybe we need to cut something out. Like does it matter or does it not matter? Because we do a lot of stuff, and sometimes we don't really need to do all that. We can just simplify it.
What I like about that is it seems like it can be reflexive to say, oh, we need to hire someone, but we just need to add more. But it sounds like you guys are pausing, hey, what is the best way for us right now to create the capacity we need to do what we want?
Yeah.
And there's options on the table there. So that's cool. Great. Miranda, one or two more questions here. What's something we haven't talked about as it relates to growing organically versus inorganically, about growing sustainably versus unsustainably, about somebody growing in a way that builds a great reputation and also keeps solid momentum in their business? If that's somebody's goal, we've covered a lot of good ground here, but what's something we didn't cover that you think would be valuable for people here?
Which I don't have to tell you this because you already know this, but growth, you have to have good relationships. So me sending a direct mail marketing piece to someone and their banker or their attorney or their CPA or their whatever professional service that I know, realtor, them saying, you should call Foothills because they're the best. That's gonna be such a warm lead coming in versus I got a piece of paper in the mail that I'm throwing away because, I also have 4 car warranty offers or whatever. And that's where I think I've done well establishing those relationships and making sure like those people know, because everybody, like people want to help other people. That's just, human nature. You want to be helpful, right? So when someone has a problem, you want to be the one that's like, hey, I've got a guy. I do it all the time. Like I know somebody that if you just called them, I feel like that would be super helpful to you because I want to help. And other people do too. So you need to build the relationships with the people that can say, I know somebody that can help you, because you're getting a warm lead, you're getting a reference. So in doing that, like I have a commercial banker friend. I have several of them, but one very recently, I got a phone call and the guy had like 6 or 7 units. He'd been self-managing. He was up for renewal on, his 5-year and whatever, or 5-year loan was up. And so he was in talking renewal and sharing some of the problems and things like that. And she said, you should really call Maranda. And she can really just make this a lot easier for you, where you can focus on this other stuff and you get a check in the mail and it's wonderful, right? And so he was like, oh, okay. And even though like we're well known in the community, he was like, didn't even think about it, So doing that, and I feel like in those kind of things, you need to educate those people on what you do and the problems that you solve, because you do a lot and you solve a lot of problems. So they need to know examples. They need to know that you signed up this portfolio and you increased rents 20% in 12 months. They need to know that you had a squatter in a property and you were able to get them removed in 48 hours. Like, think about what the concerns are for landlords. Like, that's the same every market, right? They're having trouble collecting the rent. They're having trouble with lease violations. They're not maintaining their property. They're not increasing their rents. Like, these are their problems. So in normal, natural conversations that come up, throw it in there. Work your way in there with an example of something, and then that's going to stick. Examples and stories stick with people. So if you tell them a story about something that you did, then they will then relate that and be able to pull that from their file and refer you because you solved a problem and they know a guy.
Yeah, I mean, what I love about what you're saying, it ties back to earlier. It seems like almost everybody would agree that word of mouth marketing is like the best form of marketing because it's high trust, which means it's just more efficient, right? Buyers moving through the process. And yet, while everyone would agree with that premise, not everybody's taken the time to say, okay, how do we actually develop, here are the problems and pain points and the stories we tell about them that are easy to retell, right? That people will want to retell, so that actually happens, right? And focus on actually making it part of their plan and strategy, as opposed to it can be easy to just design a flyer and send it out to a bunch of people, right? And that can be easy to do. It can be harder to do the former thing, right? But that ultimately that's paid off for you guys to keep the focus there.
Tenfold.
Yeah.
I mean, zero marketing spend, 14 years, and started with 30 units and I owned 8 of them.
Yep.
So 22. And just having that consistent double digit, slow and steady growth consistently. And it's that pays off so much. So be in rooms that those people are in, take the time, join Rotary, go to fundraising events, go to your Chamber of Commerce events and meet people, right? And be genuinely interested in people. Don't set out and be like, okay, I need to go to this event and I need to find the CPAs and so they can tell their clients that they should call Maranda because she gives great reports. No, just like go meet people and build relationships with people and it'll come. You'll have an opportunity to tell. People love hearing crazy PM stories. They love it. They're so entertaining. They're like, they did what? And you're like, I know, people are nuts. And they love it. So, they'll ask you and then you'll have an opportunity.
Well, Maranda, I love that. We'll end on that note. Just your passion for people and how that translates to your strategy of how you're growing the company really rings through. So always appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And that wraps up another episode of the Triple Win Property Management Podcast. Thank you for pressing play. We hope you've gained valuable insights and inspiration.
The Triple Win Property Management Podcast is proudly produced and distributed by Second Nature, where we believe in a triple win, building winning experiences for your residents, investors, and your teams with the only fully managed resident benefits package. Visit secondnature.com to learn more and talk to an RBP expert in your area.
If you have any questions, comments, or want to weigh in on the conversation, we'd love to hear from you. Email triplewin@secondnature.com. That's triplewin@secondnature.com.
Stay connected with us beyond the podcast. Visit our website at secondnature.com to stay updated with upcoming property management events and articles.
And don't forget, you can keep the conversation going in the Triple Win Property Management Facebook group. It's exclusively for property managers.
To receive even more valuable insights and updates, subscribe to our newsletter. You can find the link to that and much more in the show notes.
On behalf of the Triple Win community, this is Laura Mack, thanking you for tuning in.
And on behalf of Second Nature, this is Carol Housel. Check back soon for another exciting episode.
Until then, keep striving for that triple win.